Welcome to the Rise Above show presented by roofing.com. Today we are re-releasing an episode that we launched in December. This episode we filmed with Jonathan Sherwood, and I was out in Dallas at his event, What's Stopping You? And we got to sit down beforehand and chat a little bit on the podcast, specifically with him being able to overcome addiction and how he's been able to use those experiences to help other people out and how that's led him to start this event, What's Stopping You? And, he invited me to be on the panel, the Perseverance panel there in Dallas, myself and Reggie Brock, who you guys just saw on the previous episode that we just launched. And so I was really excited to be a part of his event, and I was truly grateful for that. And so because we never launched the video portion of it, I wanted to make a proper re-release and get it back out there, get everyone to see this. It was a great episode, and I'm just truly thankful that he was able to, that he invited me to be a part of that. So with that being said, guys, I also do want to invite you guys to join our community on Facebook, the Roofing and Solar Community Facebook group. So go on Facebook, go in the search bar and type in Roofing and Solar Community and click to join that. We do trainings every week in there with industry experts on different topics. This week, we're actually doing an NFT and crypto training. So how do you use NFTs and cryptos in your roofing and solar business? We're going to do that on Tuesday, the 25th at 8 p.m., but we're always doing trainings in there. We'd love for you to be a part of our community. If you haven't already joined, it's the Roofing and Solar Community on Facebook. With that, let's get into this episode of the Rise Above show presented by roofing.com.
And now, the Rise Above show, presented by roofing.com and hosted by Diego Dante.
And welcome to the Rise Above show presented by roofing.com. I am your host, Diego Dante, and with me today, we have one of my favorite people in the industry, Mr. Jonathan Sherwood. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. I really appreciate you getting me here with you, especially since I know you're only in town for a couple days and you're just getting this Rise Above podcast kind of off the ground.
Yeah.
And to be one of the first of many that are on here means a lot. I'm truly honored. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you bringing me here to be on at the What's Stopping You event here in Dallas. I know you guys have a lot of awesome people that you could have asked to come and be a part of it. So I truly appreciate getting the opportunity to be a part of it. So we didn't really get a lot of time to chat beforehand, and I'm kind of trying this out a little bit differently because with everyone else we've sat down, we planned out what we wanted to do, but with you we really just sat down and and we're starting to chat. So I'm excited about this. I'm going to keep him on his toes. So dude, so let's get to know Jonathan because I would say we're good acquaintances but I really want to, get to know you and know more of your backstory. So tell myself and the people listening, who is Jonathan Sherwood and, what's your backstory? What do you bring to the industry? We can start there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So Jonathan Sherwood, I am the president of Roofers Helping Roofers, consulting platform that specializes in project procurement and fulfillment and year-long consulting with contractors to propel them into the commercial marketplace. And then I'm also the managing partner of Surefire Seamless Systems. I've had a real heart and passion for the industry. It's no secret that I'm in recovery. Everybody knows that. And I had kind of a rough organized crime, drug dealer, was kind of bound by addiction and alcoholism and abuse and brokenness and kind of hopelessness in my life. But God brought me out of that. And that's a big reason why we try to give so much back to the industry and why we're having these free events with the first one kicking off tonight, the What's Stopping You? Just a little background on my roofing. So it's going on approximately 14 years. I owned and operated with my partner, Greg Marthaler Jr., who a lot of folks know. He's the CEO of SFY, a roofing company in Denver, Colorado called G2 Roofing and Construction.
There's the connection between you two. I didn't realize that you guys had owned a company together.
Yeah, and it gets even better than that. So I'll kind of go back here in a second after I kind of tell you a little bit of the history of the roofing. So we built that in my basement. Ended up building a great brand, and then in September of 2016, we sold it to the regional operations manager of John Mansfield, which is a large roofing product manufacturer, one of the largest in the nation. I was already kind of going back and forth from Denver to Dallas because there's obviously more commercial opportunity in Dallas, and I'm a commercial guy, predominantly low slope and high pressure fluid application, SPF, urethane, acrylic, silicone, etc. When I got to Dallas, I ended up working with a development company who was big in development, but not as much in the commercial roofing side. Built out their roofing outfit, took their vice president's position, got them in the top 150 roofing companies by the grace of God in the nation, took the president's chair. And I was like, man, I don't really want to do this anymore. I'm going to become kind of a consultant and a gun for hire. But the one thing I'm never going to do again is own another roofing company because of the liability that came with it. So fluid applications took off, consulting platform kind of took off, and I was doing foam and coatings all across the United States, but I was subcontracting the work out. And then what ended up happening? I needed more control. I ended up opening a national foam and coatings company and did the one thing I said I wouldn't do and became another owner of a roofing company. During all that, because the heart I had for the industry and just helping other industry peers, whether it was answering phone calls, FaceTimes, telling them how to do things in commercial, I got a lot of questions. I started getting hashtag roofers helping roofers. Never knew it was going to become anything, completely organic. Then it turned into that whole procurement of contract and fulfillment of the actual project and having the year-long process, the file vault and all that, got it trademarked, and now it is what it is today, and we're hosting the first event this evening. So that's my roofing side. And then to go back and rewind, because I think this is closer to home and more on my heart than that when it comes to Greg. So I've known Greg since I was 18. I'm 40, so that's 22 years old. And Greg and his family were a very strategic part of my life in helping me get out of addiction and everything that came along with it, you know, coming from the broken home and being in the streets. And his family stuck with me through everything. So
wow.
We ended up becoming business partners later, but his family housed me, fed me, took me to church, helped me kind of clean up my life. And it was a long process, and I don't know how they endured, but they managed to endure because I was real rough around the edges. But that's how I actually came to know Greg from SFY.
Dang, man. That's awesome. I didn't know that story. I always see you around, you know, doing, you know, different events and stuff, but it's awesome hearing that story. Let's talk about, you know, you're obviously very involved with roofers in recovery. Mm-hmm. Are you the president of Roofers in Recovery? What's your
Well, actually,
role?
I was on the board of the Roofers in Recovery and had a secretary position, but I decided to go all in on the Roofers Helping Roofers. Still heavily in recovery, but I go to a big book group in Rockwall, Texas, but no longer actually on the board of Roofers in Recovery. Still 100% support and behind them, and actually refer individuals to them, and still involved in their meetings. But I decided to elect to put everything into the Roofers Helping Roofers. Sure. So that's what I've actually been doing. But I was actually one of the individuals that helped get it kicked off the ground, spent a couple years in it, and that program is life-changing. The people behind that program have a true heart for seeing change in those that are bound by addiction and alcoholism. And, you know, one of the things that I learned in Roofers in Recovery and in recovery is they talk about, you know, each day recovery begins when one alcoholic addict shares experience, hope, and strength with another alcoholic addict. And that's exactly what Roofers in Recovery is doing on those Tuesday night meetings. They're sharing experience, hope, and strength with individuals that need it, whether they're just getting started in recovery, whether they've been in recovery for, you know, 10, 15, 20 plus years, or whether they've hit a stumbling block in their recovery. So I think it's important that this industry has those individuals, and I support them 100%.
Dude, that's awesome. I've never told you that. We've never really talked about this, but from the beginning, I connected a lot with you guys. I've actually never once in my life had a sip of alcohol, and so what happened was when I was a kid, I saw a lot of the negative effects of alcohol in my family, and so because of that, I just made the decision that I just wasn't gonna have alcohol, and so it just turned into this thing where, you know, if I'm at a party or something, I'm just a random guy with an energy drink or with a Sprite or something like that. And so when I see you guys making this positive impact in the industry, you know, I, it truly impacts me because I've seen the negatives of it and I've seen the positives of living a sober life. And so I've connected with you guys on that. But then also, I know that even with all that, I know that I have addictive tendencies. And so even though I've never struggled with alcohol myself or drugs or tobacco, I've had really bad addictions, and like one of those has been binge eating for me. And so this last year I've realized that I had, because it was something that I truly, it's funny with that type of thing because you can see when someone has an issue with alcohol because it gives them this, there's this result or whatever. But with binge eating, it's one of those things you can keep to yourself and until people start seeing the results of it. And so I dealt with that for a long time. And this year I realized that I had an issue, and I decided to start talking to people about it. And I started talking to people that are in the Roofers in Recovery program. One of them, Bubba Richards, he's helped me out a lot. He's helped me, keep me extremely accountable. And I realized, this is what I'm doing when I'm binge eating. I'm being, I'm keeping it a secret. I don't want other people to know that I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I'm stressed out. It's a response to my stress. And so I started keeping myself accountable with these other guys that are, have dealt with other addictions, and it's helped me out so much. I mean, it's March 23rd was the last time that I had a binge eating episode. So, I mean, it's funny because to me, I've been treating it like an addiction, and because I've done that, it's helped me to overcome that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I wanted to share at your event today, but I wanted to thank you guys for all the things that you guys are doing in the industry, because even if it's not something with alcohol, I feel like even from far away, you guys have helped me out with that.
And I can actually relate to that a lot for the fact, and I know Greg would be okay with me sharing this because I've known him for 22 years, but he struggled with binge eating, and he's in that same battle that you've been overcoming. And growing up with him, and we would compare, my addiction, my women problem, my drinking problem, and how it had me bound and shackled. And that's how he had been with food. And he had the same struggle, but with the food. And it's not till you really know somebody that's struggling with that, do you realize how serious of addiction it truly is. And I've talked to him about the details of how that works, and how it kind of calls you, just like any type of other addiction will call you, whether it's sex, whether it's porn, whether it's alcohol, whether it's marijuana or illicit narcotics. It's the same type of thing, and it gets an individual bound. And one of the things that I like the most about tonight, and one of the things that I like the most about your journey, is I've been watching your journey, and that's pretty cool. And that's why, when we had the opportunity to have you on, we're like, absolutely, we want to get him on there because we've watched you overcome that and how it's changing your life. And, for me, my events, everybody's welcome. I don't care where they're at. They can be bound by anything. They can be on the other side of being bound and be freed by it. They can walk in the door and a mess. Doesn't matter to me. They're in the right place. Anybody that wants to come into it. So that's the vibe that we want to put out there. It's like struggling, not struggling, on the other side of struggle, just getting into struggle, in the middle of endurance struggle. We got a place for you. Doesn't matter who you are.
I love it, man. All right, let me ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. Okay. And you don't have to give me rapid fire answers, but I guess these are questions that I'm asking everyone that comes on the podcast. So the theme of the podcast is the Rise Above show. Obviously, our community is roofing contractors, but for the most part, we're going to talk about business development, but I also want to talk about personal development and rising above. And those could be things in business, but also in our personal lives. So my first question is, what is a big failure that you've had in your life, and how were you able to rise above?
So that's a great question. And one of the biggest failures that I had in my life actually kind of goes back to what we're talking about, but it was being bound by alcoholism. So I was a heroin addict in my 20s, and I got free from that. And I had issues with other narcotics and drugs, and I got free from that. But I stayed bound by the alcoholism most of my life. And my sobriety date, the last time that I had a drink, was June 8th of 2020. So it's just over a year and a half. And how did I get to that point? Because I rode many roller coasters. Would do good for a little bit and then go on a spree and a bunch of drinking. Would get 5 months sober and then drink. Would get a few days sober, then drink. It's like anything could happen. It could be something good would happen. Maybe I wanted to have a drink. Something bad would happen. Had to have a drink. And what I found out for me in my experience is I was living my life on John's terms and I wasn't living my life on God's terms. And when I begun living my life on God's terms and being obedient to God, then I started getting freedom and working the program. And for me, because of everything that I went through and being in the streets and the violence and the anger and everything, it actually took years of CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy to rewire me before I could ever even get to the place to get in recovery, to get the freedom I have now. So what the individuals are seeing today is the miraculous intervention of God with a combination of 7 years of cognitive behavioral therapy and recovery being the last year and a half to get where I'm actually at today. So for me, it was recovery and living on God's terms and stop playing God. And one of the things that hurt the most is I love the Lord. And not to be a fruit nutter flake, but this is just me being real. And I wanted to be that guy that just, got a hot flash from the Lord or a cold chill and then life was changed. But I was bound and it wasn't. But I also realized that I went around stating I was a Christian, not living a Christian life. And that's one of the things where I think becoming obedient had a lot to do with the freedom that I have today.
All right. Second rapid fire question. This is more on the business side, but I hope that you tie it into the personal side as well. How will you know when you've succeeded in business?
Another great question. So success for me is not measured in a paycheck. Success for me is measured in who I am as a man. Let's elaborate. Who I am as a father, who I am as a husband, who I am as a boss, employer, who I am as a friend, who I am in my community, and who I am in the world. Success for me has everything to do with me fulfilling the plan, the purpose, and the destiny on my life. So I believe that I am walking into my purpose right now. So I'll be fulfilled when I know that I've done everything that I'm supposed to do to touch those of the lives around me, as large as the scale as God wants it to be, but it has nothing to do with monetary value.
I hope the people listening have listened to the other podcasts as well, because you're going to start to see a trend. Because everyone else, when I've asked them this question, it's never been about money, right? And I'm talking, people that have had a good level of success, and it's people realize that, like Reggie said in his podcast, if you can be a mile wide with your success, but if you don't have those deep roots, then there won't be any fulfillment. And I think that ties in with what you were just saying. All right, let me go on to the next rapid fire question. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? Do you know what imposter syndrome is?
Not quite sure what.
Okay, so a lot of people, in our Revolt program, we deal with a lot of business owners, and this comes up a lot where, especially business owners, they have the sense of being an imposter, of these things, like they don't deserve the success that's come to them, or that people are going to find out that they're, not as either as bright or as, like the things that's come to them has come from an out because of something else other than because they've put in the work, right? And that happens a lot with business owners, and people just feel like at some point they're going to find out that I'm a fraud. Mm-hmm. We hear that a lot. And so I want to know, do you ever have feelings like that? And if you don't, what would you say to business owners or anyone in business who is dealing with things like that?
I would have to say that I dealt with that in my life for a while when I wasn't being honest with myself. And it wasn't until I got honest with myself and transparency and realized a couple things. One, that I'm not that important and not that great, that I'm an entrepreneur, that I find out what works, I try everything, and I fail my way to success. And that it wasn't that I was just some great individual salesman, speaker, business mindset of a man. It was that I failed my way to success as an entrepreneur. Two, that it wasn't me, that it was the grace of God on my life, and that's how I got to where I'm at. And then when I was able to be transparent with my mistakes and my flaws to others to help them, my business just began to explode. And as I have focused more on others and not been selfish, focused on myself, business just happens. It just happens. It's almost like, for example, the sponsors tonight at our event, MMA, ABC, RRCA, support from the APA. These guys are investing into an event that doesn't really have anything monetary coming their way. There's no ticket price for tonight. Anything that we didn't get from sponsors, we made up the difference out of our own pockets. They are doing business with us. It's not even business. They're supporting us to do a free event because they believe in what we're doing. Because of that, the individuals in that room, they're going to want to do business with those type of people. It's when you start spending time into what really matters, that imposter begins to dissipate. You begin to become honest with yourself, and the rest just comes together.
I had an experience, just to piggyback off of that. I had an experience in my life where I was dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of questions in my life about certain things of, am I worth it? Am I worthy of blah, blah, blah? You know, a lot of those feelings. And I had this moment where it clicked in my head where I thought to myself, none of that matters. Focus on serving other people and everything else will fall into place. And that's always been my response to the whole imposter syndrome, has been just don't worry about it. It's hard to say, it's hard to step back and, not worry about those types of things. But at the same time, like, if you focus on serving other people, everything else will fall into place.
Absolutely.
And I think, that's why I enjoy spending time with you, because you are doing a great job serving the industry and serving people around you. And I have one last question for you.
Sure.
And is there a book specifically that's changed your life?
Samson Syndrome is the book, and the only book that I have read more than once in my entire life. So I never liked to read, other than the Bible, obviously, but I've never liked to read. All I've ever read is the Bible, the Alcoholics Anonymous book, and biographies about gangsters who became Christian leaders, because I could relate to them, and this book, Samson Syndrome. And this was a book that was all about the life of Samson and how women and control and his decisions messed up him fulfilling the purpose completely that God had on his life. God still used him in the end. He still destroyed everybody, but it took his life in order to do it. And how his decisions set him off a course of what could have been the full plan of God on his life. And I read that book twice because I could really relate to it. And I've given that book to people. And I have actually never read, this is kind of embarrassing, I have never read a business book in my life. I have never read a book about business or scaling, and I've had them all. Hey, read Dale Carnegie's friend's book, read this sales book, read all this. I've never read any of those books. I have read countless books about mobsters, gangsters, and people who've changed their life, radically transformed their life, but never read any of those other books before.
Well, I think, and this is just my opinion, but I think that when you focus on building yourself up as a human, the business side just kind of comes along with it.
I agree with you 100%, because I got a GED in jail, and I am definitely not qualified to be the business owner and entrepreneur by the world standards that I am today. And all I've done is try to focus on the purpose on my life, and I know that's other people. And in that, everything else has come together. And the more I focus on other people and the more I drive towards what I feel is fulfilling the call on my life, business just comes. And it just gets easier and easier. I do no toiling and just resting when it comes to work. And I don't really market anymore. I mean, yeah, we all see my videos, right? I don't boost any posts. They're all organic. We get 3 to 5 opportunities to vet for large commercial roofs every week from all across the United States. My phone just rings all the time. And all we're really doing is focusing on trying to do free events and get people in the doors and talk to them about real life.
Dude, that's awesome. Let's talk some fun stuff.
Cool.
So it's funny. I say, let's talk some fun stuff, and I'm going to bring it back to business. But this is I'm a marketing guy. And so for me, I just love talking that type of stuff. And so maybe for everyone else, this isn't fun stuff. But we talked about Gary Vee a minute ago. And you were just talking about putting on free events. We do free events all the time. We do free retreats. As much as we can do. And I guess, where do you see the value in doing? How do you bring in value from free retreats, or not free retreats, but free events? Because we're on the same page. But I want to know, because I get questions all the time. Why would you do that for free? And so I want to hear your perspective on that.
So let's talk about the event that we have going on in a few hours from now. Mm-hmm. This event is for the industry, but has nothing to do with scaling, business, growing, money. It has everything to do with inspiration, motivation, perseverance, and breakthrough. And I'm not looking for anything to come out of it business-wise, but I know this in my heart. When people see that you are truly focused on them and what's going on in their life outside of business, that's the people they want to do business with. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to try. I guarantee that people at this event are going to network and connect, and that somebody in this event outside these doors when they leave is going to make connection with other people's at these events and end up monetizing off of something.
Yeah.
And it's not even probably going to be talked about here tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be somebody engaging in a conversation that was uncomfortable for them, that they didn't even know they were going to have. It's going to be somebody hearing something from one of the panelists or the speaker, or a sidebar conversation that touched their life, that propelled them to deal with something they weren't willing to deal with. It's going to be somebody hearing your testimony or Greg's testimony that was dealing with the eating thing or food, that didn't really want to talk about it ever. It's going to be somebody with addiction, or somebody bound by something, or somebody that looks like they have it all together. Marriage is falling apart and their browser history is terrible and thought they had nowhere to go. And somebody's life's going to get touched, and they're going to leave a different way than they walked in tonight. And then on top of that, this is the cool thing about it, they're going to end up getting blessed, because something's going to be connected to business down the road. And it's going to come very easy for them because they're focusing on their life and becoming a better individual. Then how successful can I be if it's measured in monetary gain?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to give you my bonus question.
Okay.
And this is, I guess that last one was the fun question, even though I feel like it wasn't even a fun question as much as it was just I think it's fun just because I just enjoy marketing stuff. Okay, so my last question is, let's take out business. Let's take out everything else out. If Jonathan Sherwood is by himself, what do you like to do for fun, man?
I like to fish. I love deep sea fishing.
Mm-hmm.
I used to just love to fish in general, but then I was fortunate enough to do a lot of deep sea fishing. So I kind of got hooked on catching big fish. So it's hard for me to do freshwater unless it's like alligator gar or something of a large species. I like to travel. I like to do CrossFit, which is something new for me. I think I've only been doing it for maybe 6 or 7 months. So I'm still a green bean and not all that great at it, but it's very challenging and humbling. So I like that. And I like to spend time with family, because I didn't really have family ever. And that's my fault, because I used everything that happened to me as an excuse to become a monster. But once I got through all that, I realized there are people that love me. And even if you don't have the same blood pumping through your veins, doesn't mean you're not family. And now I have family, so I get to do all this stuff. Like my house is decorated for Christmas, and I get to have Thanksgivings not alone, and things I didn't get to experience because I was just choosing to act like an idiot. And so the family thing's really big for me right now, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's, for being 40 and just getting to start, it's pretty cool, but I'm just kind of grabbing on it and trying to do all the family stuff that I can.
Yeah. Well, dude, I appreciate you coming on and chatting with me. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be a part of your event today. I'm excited about it. And I appreciate you being a part of our events because, dude, from the beginning, you've been one of our biggest cheerleaders, posting videos on Facebook about our stuff. And,
Love you guys.
And, dude, I appreciate it, man.
You guys, I will be supporting you guys every single thing that you do. I think that RoofCon is one of the conferences to be at. I watched how it's just developed, and I'm like, man, it is becoming one of the largest conferences in our industry. And what I like the most about it, not to get sidetracked, is when you go to a conference and the vibe is peaceful and everything's running smooth and people are enjoying be there and they're engaged in the moment without having to do something to distract them because they're not getting what they need from it. And you hear the conversations of how much they like that speaker and what's going on. That's a great conference. And that is what it's been at RoofCon the last few times that I've been there. And I'm super excited.
I appreciate it, man. I didn't ask him to
no, not at all,
to
man.
talk about
not at all,
that,
man.
But,
I just love you guys.
Man. Dude.
All
right, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you guys that stuck around and listened the whole way through. You've been listening to the Rise Above Show presented by Roofing.com. Catch us next week on the next episode. Peace out.